the origin stories of this. I was experiencing a tough time. This is my recollection of this, and you might have a different one.
Phil Phails at Philosophy.
I was experiencing a tough time in my life with family, with co-parent, and I reached out to you and Nicole, and I said, guys, I'm having a hard time. And Nicole said, like, what's going on for you?
Right.
And I started to type what's going on for you, and then you said, I think this is something better discussed in person.
Right.
Let's meet.
Because I hate deep interpersonal conversations in text.
Because it probably did get too, I might have been getting too detailed or too explicit. Right. And the next thing you know, I'm meeting with Grant at the coffee shop down the street. And we're talking about it. And yeah, you were just available to, it's been a while.
I remember
since we used to go on bike rides together a long time ago. And I think 3 or 4 bike rides in, you're like, this hill's too much for me. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We were going up that hill, and you're like, let's go home.
Was that our last bike ride?
Probably. There was that one bike ride where I got down into the water and started swimming, and you're like, Alchemy would totally do this.
Oh, yeah. I was still like, because it was like deep COVID, and I would have done that.
This was pre-COVID.
No, we were in COVID for the bike ride.
Were we?
Yeah. Because I remember that, and it was because there were other people in the water.
Oh.
And I didn't want to get close to them and hang out. Yeah.
So, and it had been a long time since the bike rides. And yeah, we were at the coffee shop, and I was sharing my experience. And I think I came up with these questions of like, how do I know what's real? How do I know what's going on? How do I know if I'm a bad dad?
Right.
How do I know if I'm abusing my kids?
Right.
Like, I obviously don't think I am.
Right.
But I'm biased.
But how do you know that? And that's an important, like in all our lives, that's an important question to ask is like, how do I know that this image I have of myself, especially when it comes to how I relate to the things and the people that are most important to me?
Yeah.
How do I know I got that right?
And what I knew was I was raised in a really, what I would say, dysfunctional way. And dysfunctional is a kind word. Raised in a kind of abusive, traumatic way. And so the idea that some of that would come off as adult shrapnel,
it's totally
that would
reasonable.
Spin off in my overwhelmed states with my children is, I think, reasonable.
Yeah.
And it probably does in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started.
Right.
And then as part of that coffee talk, I shared with you this idea I had about doing a show. How did we get to the first improv? Maybe I was like, you were one of the first people I interviewed, like probably in the first 5.
You were. I remember you saying you were going to do that. It sounded interesting to me, and I think you just asked if you could interview me.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure.
And the next thing you know, I've got an idea about Phil Phails at Philosophy.
And then we're talking, and then you're asking me these deeply personal questions about my family I wasn't expecting. And
we learned a lot about Grant Potts.
Like my mom's gonna watch this someday. I gotta be. You know.
Did you pull punches because your parents are still alive?
No. No, not at all.
Okay. Y'all go back and watch the Grant Potts first interview where we do a deep dive into Penn State. And
University of Pennsylvania.
I'm sorry, yeah, University of Pennsylvania.
They're so angry at you over there.
My bad, University of Pennsylvania. You also learn how he was born in Taiwan or an African country, where they were growing rubber. This is like a
rubber plantation.
Plantation. This is a memory game. He was working on the electricity for that bad boy.
I mean, he was doing a big renovation project, but yeah, he built a dam for.
Oh, don't tell me it's Nigeria. No. Tell me. Anyway, go back to the video.
Liberia,
and learn a lot about Grant. But yeah, we got there to the first interview, and then I think somewhere in between that, I was really excited.
You're like, I want to read philosophy. How do I do that?
Yeah. And then you came over with the books, and we picked one. And I think you're a friend of mine. I've enjoyed going to your house. I enjoy Nicole. I enjoy Alchemy. I enjoyed y'all's little group. I think that y'all are kind of in the same way as far as the way you interact and see the world, at least from my perspective. And so there was an idea of like having fun and play with you. And then also like, how do I capitalize on Grant's friendship to learn and grow? Not in a selfish way. Capitalize is a weird word to say.
It is a very real.
Let's take capitalize out and use another word. How do I take advantage of Grant?
Oh, now you're taking advantage of me.
How do I leverage Grant's?
Now you're getting into Scientology language.
Oh my God. How do I just spend time with Grant and learn by osmosis?
Right.
So that was
Anyway, yeah.
yeah. So then I had this whole idea of Phil Phails at philosophy. I interviewed one other philosopher, and it wasn't the same, dude. And I like Zach. I think he's a cool dude, but it was just different.
Right. Well, it's also different because we have a certain kind of rapport from now years.
I think it's pronounced rapport.
No, I'm going to say rapport.
Yeah, from years.
From years of mispronouncing rap. People also say pillow weird. So
How do you say pillow?
pillow.
Pillow.
Yeah. Does it sound weird to you?
No.
See, people are always like, pillow. And then
whatever.
they say their word. I'm like, I can't hear a difference between yours.
What about advertisement? Advertisement.
Yeah, that's just wrong.
Aluminium.
Aluminium, yeah. But we have that history, right? And that's longer. Do you remember where we met?
I don't, but let me guess. Well, alchemy is probably the unifier, Everly and alchemy, and so I'm guessing at a school function. Ooh, would it be at Richard and Jessamine's?
Close, but not quite.
Dude, I gotta guess. Was it at Juniper and Ione's play that they performed at that sculpture
Absolutely.
museum?
At the Elizabeth Nye Museum.
Elizabeth Nye Museum in Austin, Texas.
Jessamine had recruited alchemy to be part of that.
And also recruited my daughters to be
Yeah.
a part of it. They were the wind, I think.
And alchemy definitely hit it off with your kid, and there was like, and you were kind of on the, and I think we talked a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we exchanged, I think we exchanged contact information so that when Alchemy and Everly wanted to get together, we could arrange that because we were young and we were still in that mode where we had to like be the absolute taxi driver for our kids.
That might have been 2019.
Maybe earlier than that, but yeah, it was. I feel like it was a bit.
Could have been earlier than that. Yeah.
Before 2020, because we had then quite a number of times where we hung out because we ran into each other at Richard and Jessamine's house when they were a couple doors down.
Yep.
Which was always a delight. And then we got together some on our own. Our kids got together. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we have this years of kind of building that relationship. You're not going to have that with someone else.
No.
No matter how
It comes
awesome
in
they
cold.
are. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's just a lack of comfort on, what the dynamics are of how you can play with each other.